Hello, I'm Charles Haskell, your worship associate for today. My wife, Christine, was born in Switzerland. In 1968, we were living in Maryland where I was doing cancer research at the National Cancer Institute. We took our summer vacation that year in Switzerland to visit her grandparents and other relatives. We were impressed that her elderly grandfather took a daily walk from his chalet down to the village and back in the morning. However, shortly after we arrived, we noted that he had missed his walk. We soon learned that he had suffered a stroke and was in bed at home. After consulting with their doctor, my wife's grandmother decided not to admit her husband to the hospital, but to care for him at home for his final illness. I was pressed into action as the nighttime attendant so Christine's grandmother could get some sleep. He lived about 10 days. He received no medications, no IV fluids, in fact, none of the high-tech supportive care issues that I was used to using at the National Cancer Institute. I have been the physician for hundreds of dying cancer patients over the years. I've observed many different ways of dying, but I'm often reminded of the simple and humane way that Christine's grandfather died at home in the bosom of his family. There was minimal expense and no fruitless interventions. His family was respected by their neighbors for the humane way they cared for him at home. As I look back on the clinical course of my dying patients in the past, I'm struck with an important memory. The spiritual care of my patients was frequently neglected, even though I taught medical students and residents that spiritual care was important. I'm happy to say that spiritual care at UCLA has improved greatly since I retired from the medical faculty. Our guest today, Michael Eselun, is deeply involved in providing spiritual care for cancer patients at UCLA. We are pleased he is with us today to share his experiences and insights. Come, let us worship together. As we come together in community in this virtual space, we are very aware of all that we have had to let go of, not the least of which, at the most basic level, coming into physical presence with one another. As we light our own candles, if we choose, to represent the chalice of our community, we are mindful of this sacred time of coming together on our shared journey of discovery. Discovery of that which remains, essential, after we have had to let go of so much. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community Church of Santa Monica. I'm Charles Haskell, your worship associate for today. The Reverend Jeremiah Kalende, who serves this congregation as its developmental minister, is off today. Michael Eselun, our guest minister, and our team of worship associates are delighted to be joining you in your online sanctuary this morning. Michael Eselun serves as the chaplain for the Sims-Mann UCLA Center for Integrative Oncology. Two-time TEDx speaker, Michael speaks extensively to healthcare professionals, patient populations, and faith communities across the country. He's also worked as an activist educator addressing anti-LGBTQIA issues in the larger community for over 30 years. Michael was recently inducted into the UCLA Semel Institute Eudaimonia Society in recognition of having lived a meaning-driven life. He has 4 volumes of CDs available for purchase. Contact Michael through his website, www.michaeleselun.com. If you are new to our community, please know that while our building is closed, we are still here, and there are many ways to learn more about us and become involved. We offer a multitude of programs to serve the needs of our congregation and to be of service to the larger world, offering broad religious and personal education for youth as well as for people of all ages, in addition to serving as a pillar of community activism in Santa Monica and our West LA neighborhoods. If you're interested in learning more, please join us for our virtual visitor meetup after the service. Unitarian Universalism is not defined by creed or dogma, but is guided by principles that affirm the worth and dignity of every person and encourage an individual search for truth and meaning. We honor the wonder of existence and believe that we are all connected to each other and to the interdependent web of life. Our beliefs are drawn from scripture and science, nature and philosophy, personal experience, and ancient tradition. We are an open, affirming, and welcoming congregation. We are diverse in backgrounds, social locations, gender identities, ethnicities, sexual orientations, spiritualities, and philosophies of life. We are united in our desire to create a diverse, beloved community, to live the principles of our faith, and to serve the wider world. As we begin this morning, we want to acknowledge that our church building and the homes of most of our members are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded land of the Tongva people, who lived here and cared for this land for thousands of years. This land was stolen from the Tongva by colonial settlers. We recognize and mourn the often deadly harm inflicted on indigenous people of this country. We honor their grace, resilience, and relationship with these sacred lands. Announcements. Please join UU Santa Monica's first virtual auction. With Dining for Dollars not possible now in the age of COVID, we are undertaking this fundraising effort where church members are offering events online via Zoom and selling items of value that folks can bid on. Go to www.biddingowl.com and find UU Santa Monica under Featured Auctions. This current auction ends January 6, so there is still time to offer an event or an item of value. If you have questions, contact Carl Lisowski or Greg Wood. This is a church fundraiser, so bid high and bid often. Join us after the service for our virtual coffee hour on Zoom. There are a number of breakout options with different discussion topics, conversations, and opportunities to get to know one another more deeply. Links will be posted on our UUSM Facebook group. For more information about our activities and ways to get involved, please visit our website at uusm.org or our online newsletter at news.uusm.org. You may also want to sign up for our weekly newsletter on our website.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope. compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun. Winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather to celebrate once again.
El amor es la enseñanza de esta iglesia.
Love is the doctrine of this church.
Buscar la verdad es su sacramento y el servicio es la oración.
The quest for truth is its sacrament and service is its prayer.
Vivir juntos en paz.
To dwell together in peace.
Buscar el conocimiento en la libertad.
To seek knowledge in freedom.
Servir a la humanidad en comunión.
To serve humankind in fellowship.
Así es como convenimos unos a otros.
Thus do we covenant with each other.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung through every land by every tongue.
Good morning. This morning's story is about rain boots. Now, it's specifically about a little girl named Morgan's rain boots. Now, Morgan lived in Las Vegas. Las Vegas is in the middle of the desert in Nevada, so there's not a lot of rain there. But her Aunt Millie lived in Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin does get a lot of rain. Now, when Millie was 4, her family went to visit her Aunt Millie. But being from the desert, they weren't exactly prepared for the weather. But Morgan thought it would be fine. She would stay inside and stay nice and dry and toasty. But when the rain started, all of her cousins who lived in Wisconsin wanted to go outside. I mean, there were puddles to jump in, there was mud to slide in, but poor Morgan only had her tennis shoes. So, her Aunt Millie went into a closet, dug around a bit, and found a pair of bright pink Wellington boots, just Morgan's size. And now Morgan was all ready to go outside until the lightning and the thunder happened. Morgan was officially not cool with going outside anymore. But even after the lightning and thunder stopped and all of the cousins went outside, Morgan was like, I don't care if I have Wellington boots. I am not going out there. What if I get struck by lightning? What if the thunder, makes me lose my hearing? Morgan had a lot of worries for a 3-year-old. But her Aunt Millie said, well, these are magic Wellington boots. If you put them on and you go outside, nothing will happen. You'll hear the thunder before you'll see the lightning, and then you'll know to come inside. And it'll happen because of the magic of the Wellington boots. Morgan was convinced. And in the end, Morgan went outside and played and heard the thunder and started running to the front door. And then the lightning happened. And she screamed, Aunt Millie, they're magic, they work, they're magic. And so for the rest of the trip, she wore those Wellington boots. She even wore them home. On the plane, in the car, to school. For the next 2 weeks, they were her favorite because they were magic. Now, years and years passed, and Morgan outgrew the Wellington boots. But she never got rid of them. They lived in her closet, and sometimes the kids she babysit would come, and they'd want to use the rain boots. Sometimes she'd be going to visit her cousins, and her Aunt Millie was like, hey, whatever happened to those rain boots? But Morgan, no. These were her magic rain boots, even if she was old enough to know how thunder and lightning really worked. Until Thanksgiving. Well, there were a whole new crop of cousins now that Morgan was 14. And there was lots of little ones running around except for one little tiny cousin, Maggie. Now, Maggie wanted to go outside until the thunder and the lightning. And then she went to hide. Meanwhile, Aunt Millie's arguing with Maggie, who had brought the boots with her, saying, you have to let one of the little kids wear them. And poor Morgan was like, no. These are my boots. I brought them back for nostalgia. I'm not letting a kid destroy these boots. Okay, fine. But then she found little Maggie hiding under the kitchen table. So she crawled under and said, well, what's going on? I thought you'd want to go outside with everybody else once, the lightning and the thunder is over. Maggie said, I'm scared. What if I get struck by lightning? What if the thunder makes me lose my hearing? What if someone slips in the mud and gets hurt? I can't go outside. Well, Morgan thought, and she thought, and she remembered what it felt like when she heard the thunder, looked down at her boots, and ran inside when she was 3. And she said, I'll be right back. She went upstairs and grabbed her boots, and as she came back down the stairs, her Aunt Millie said, what are you doing with the boots? I thought you said nobody could use them. Morgan said, no, I've got this. She crawls under the table with Maggie and goes, these are magic Wellington boots. Magic, says Maggie. I don't believe you. My brothers tell me things all the time and they're not true. And Morgan says, well, they were magic for me. You know what happens when you wear them? You can go outside, play in the rain and the mud, and you'll hear the thunder, and you'll know to come in before the lightning strikes. And it'll make it so the thunder isn't loud enough to hurt your ears. It's absolute magic. Maggie looked at her very skeptically. But she took the boots and put them on and went outside and had a good time, jumping in puddles and sliding in mud. And then she heard thunder. She looked up, she looked at her boots, and she ran inside. And then lightning flashed outside as all of the other cousins slowly made their way inside, and she ran up to Aunt Millie, who was talking to Morgan, and said, "They're magic, they're really, really magic. Thank you for letting me borrow them," and tried to give them back to Morgan. And Morgan said, "You can keep them." Maggie said, "But they're your magic boots." And Morgan said, "No, they're your magic boots now." And that's our story for today.
Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Let me be part of the love you give.
I invite us to close our eyes, get comfortable in our seats as we move into this time of silent reflection and contemplation. As we breathe a few nice deep breaths together, we quiet our minds. We let go of the concerns of the day, the week behind us, the week ahead of us, and we simply follow the empty breath. Richard Rohr asserts his belief in the necessity of surrender, of letting go. As we move gently into our communal silence, we also move into a space of surrender to that which is beyond our control, and we open ourselves to a peace that just may be waiting for us there. As a reading this morning, I would like to offer this from Richard Rohr. How am I ready to surrender? I believe profoundly in the necessity of surrender, but I don't think we can chart its course ahead of time. Our own private salvation projects seldom do the job. Surrender is something that is done to us more than something we do ourselves. In Joseph Campbell's book, On the Hero's Journey, he says that the only way to be a hero is to prepare, to be ready when the moment comes. You might say that is the point of all spirituality. Someone else must determine the timing, the circumstances, the shape of the ordeal. None of us can engineer our own transformation, or it would not be transformation at all, but merely cosmetic surgery to make us think well of ourselves. You can't choose ahead of time which dragon you will slay or how you will slay it. It will probably slay you. So just make sure you are well practiced in dying. Good morning. The well-known Buddhist author and teacher, Pema Chodron, offers us this in her book, When Things Fall Apart. I used to have a sign pinned to my wall that read, "Only to the extent that we expose ourselves over and over to annihilation can that which is indestructible be found in us." It was all about letting go of everything. I invite you to think about 4 or 5 things that make you who you are. That if anyone is going to know you at all, they're going to know these 4 or 5 things about you. That you're a gifted athlete, a talented artist, that maybe you're passionate about politics or your faith community, or you're a devoted grandparent, or you're known for your beautiful physique and your great head of hair. That would be me. Imagine none of that is true anymore, or not in the same way. Who would you even be then? Is there an essential you who dwells beneath all of those labels with which we might identify, all those hats we might wear? What's more, is he or she worthy of love? Is he or she capable of giving love? As painful as it may be to entertain those questions, they do reflect the most profound spiritual journey through loss, toward essence, if you will, that which is indestructible. It's a journey that so many cancer patients must take in a compressed, accelerated kind of way, watching piece by piece of one's identity just fall away. If I'm no longer the super mom who never misses a soccer game or a birthday party, who would I even be then? Am I even still a mom? The thing is, it's a journey we all must take. Life affords us each that guarantee. We will all lose everything. Everything that we are, everything that we have, everything that we love. How do we make peace with that? Is it even possible? I sometimes wonder if one measure of living a successful life might just lie within our capacity to come to peace with the inevitability of loss. A new relationship with loss. What's more, might that peace even be seen as a kind of gift, giving us a glimpse every now and then into that which is indestructible? The Buddhists would advise us to be well practiced at letting go, that grasping, holding on, clinging are sure pathways to suffering. As an illustration, we only have to look at how many of us are coping with this pandemic. I just want my old life back. When can we get back to normal? When is this going to be over? I'm an avid swimmer. I swim every day. I remember last March when my gym announced that because of the virus, they would be closing down for up to 2 weeks. 2 weeks? I can't live without the gym for 2 weeks. Oh, yeah? Just wait. I hear similar sentiments often from newly diagnosed cancer patients. Can't we just go back to 6 weeks ago before all of this happened? The thing is, it's a kind of paradox, actually, that while holding on does indeed lead to suffering, I find that there's also life force in it, in the striving, in the yearning, in the longing. Chemo infusion clinics are filled with patients who have signed up for guaranteed suffering, for the possibility of more time, more life. Universities are filled with students investing in, striving for, creating a future. When we're young, The future is almost a character in our own biography, a member of the family. Look at how much attention and intention we invest in the future. It animates our lives. It shapes so many of the decisions that we make. As we get older, possibility diminishes right along with the future, and the past becomes a far richer member of the family. Memory, stories that might soothe us or give us peace, stories that might explain us to ourselves, or stories that might just as soon haunt us, but either way, stories that provide the possibility of meaning. In the saddest irony, some of us will even lose those in time. How do we make peace with that? Is there any meaning at all to be found in all that we will lose? I am not so arrogant as to think I have any answers at all. What I have are stories, my own and those of countless patients I've been privileged to walk beside, patients whom I would just as soon call my teachers. I also have a growing faith at this stage of my life that moving closer toward any paradox and holding the space for two competing realities to be true might just offer a pathway to peace, if not wisdom. April was a great gal, mid-40s, vibrant, professional, a wife, a mom, 2 great kids. She also had this exceedingly rare, exceedingly lethal cancer diagnosis that happened to be horribly disfiguring. When the doctors gave her that awful assessment, nothing more to be done, she greeted that news with this kind of clarity and profundity. Michael, I'm dying. I know that. It's the truth. But you know what? It's only one truth of many truths. Her openness to that statement, her willingness for it to shape the remainder of her days was truly something to behold. I've also walked beside those who so valiantly cling to those 1 or 2 aspects of their identity that without them life simply wouldn't be worth living. That clinging actually keeps them going, gives their life some meaning and purpose. There's the passionate professor who, by any reasonable measure, should never have been in a classroom, given how weak and immunocompromised she was. And yet, even her oncologist saw the truth here. I see that you're a teacher and that this is what you got to do. So go teach. Just be careful, okay? I remember meeting a young mom in her 30s in the hospital not long before she died. She was busy writing a journal, keeping letters and things to give to her daughter to be read, her 11-year-old daughter, into the distant future. Oh, that's so lovely, I said. No, it's not, she said. I'm just nagging her into the future. Still just being a mom. To the very end. Sometimes it might even be an object that we cling to as some kind of remnant of an aspect of ourselves we just can't release. Maybe an old army uniform or a wedding dress, maybe an old ID badge from a long-gone career. Over the last few years of my mom's life, she was acutely aware that things would be wrapping up soon. And so she earnestly took to cleaning out every drawer, cabinet, closet, letting go so we wouldn't have to. Once death finally came, things had been pretty much sifted down to the bare essentials, except for boxes and boxes, acres and acres of family photos, cards, letters, and a few tattered newspapers with historic headlines, JFK assassinated, that sort of thing. That last Saturday that we were packing up what was left of her life, I made a final pass through her bedroom closet. And I looked up in the darkness. In the corner, high on the top shelf, there was a hat box. How had we missed that? I pulled it out and opened it, and I felt this searing stab of grief and wonder. It was the hat. This hat that had become legendary in my memory. Her Donna Reed hat, I called it. She looked just like her when she wore it. It was a little pillbox covered in champagne silk leaves, each one tipped with a teeny seed pearl. She bought the hat, I remember, to go with a light blue brocade suit that she would wear to her best friend Janet's second wedding in Las Vegas maybe 1962 or so. My mom was quite the glamorous dresser in her day. Earlier that afternoon, in fact, we had come upon the photo of the small wedding party, still in the original folder from the Desert Inn. There my mom and dad were at the dining table, looking so handsome, so beautiful, so young. My mom was the only one with a hat. That hat. I also knew that under the table were the most stunning pair of pointed-toe gold lame stilettos. I had always been fascinated, obsessed really with my mom's high heels, surreptitiously trying them on. Even I knew better than to mess with those. But here it was, she had kept it. Although we had reminisced often about those years, even about that outfit, she never let on that she had kept the hat. For decades, and decades, after letting go and saying goodbye to everything and everyone else, she held on to that hat. Why did she need it? As some kind of touchstone, as evidence, as proof that that was real? Because that hat is there in that dark corner of the closet, some souvenir of a dimension of herself she just couldn't surrender. It leaves me to wonder, what object will I cling to for no sensible reason? As some kind of placeholder for some version of myself I will always want to claim as a part of my essence, that which is indestructible. I don't know. What about you? David Foster Wallace says that everything I let go of has my claw marks on it. There are those who adapt quite well to loss, finding a new identity or maybe even a new version of the old one. Randy was a great guy. Mid-50s, advanced colon cancer. I had so many wonderful conversations with him over the last few years of his life. Not long before he died, I was walking him out of the clinic. We were still chatting when we got out into the hallway, and up walks another patient, gingerly making her way to the entrance of the clinic. She's on a walker. Randy says, "Just a minute, Michael." And he goes and he holds the door for her. Big smile on his face. "There you go, sweetheart." He came back to me and he said, "You see there, Michael, the way I see it, that's what I do now. To be kind. That's what I do." Now, Randy's professional life was one that had been animated by intense financial pressure, stress, competition, commercial real estate. It had all been refined, distilled now down to that as one who shows kindness. Cancer had robbed him of so much, but it hadn't taken away that career opportunity. It didn't rob him of that place to still find meaning. Kate, in her early 60s, was newly diagnosed with a recurrence of breast cancer, now stage 4. Kate was quite a spiritual seeker, an artist, a musician. She played cello in a local chamber orchestra. While raised an Episcopalian, she converted to Judaism much later in life, but not because of marriage or any such conventional reason, but because she said, "I love the humor in Judaism, and besides, there's no hell." She also loved the questioning nature inherent in Jewish study. Any articulation about who or what is God, how does prayer work, what happens after we die, was simply left undefined because she experienced her spirituality in community, playing music in community, praying in community. She didn't pray when she was alone. She also shared with me that she had been a survivor of childhood sexual assault, an experience that left deep wounds, to be sure, but not the least of which was a crippling fear of dying. And the essence of that fear was, "Michael, what if I just disappear?" There it is, ultimate loss, disappearance. I asked Kate if she'd ever had what any of us would call a peak spiritual experience. "Oh, yes," she said, "playing a big, lush piece of music like Handel's Messiah. I got to play that once in Cleveland, full orchestra, full chorus, the works. It was transcendent to be in the center of the creation of all that music, to be enveloped by it." "Kate, you just told me that your biggest fear would be that you disappear, and yet your peak spiritual experience is one in which you disappear, if you will, into the creation of that music. It couldn't possibly be about you and your cello in that moment, and yet without you and your cello, the music would have been different. What if dying is like that? What if the other side is like that, surrendering into this larger harmonic reality in which our voice is just an intricate, inextricable piece of the whole? She sighed into that. She exhaled into that. Sometimes we might need to summon our imagination, come up with new metaphors and images when we find ourselves immobilized by the fear of loss. I love to hike, and for decades I have made a nearly annual pilgrimage to Yosemite because there's one hike there that has simply given me my life back more times than I could count, oftentimes of great distress. About a dozen years ago, I came upon such a time, devastation really, spiritual crisis in fact, which I would define as a time of great loss. Everything I had believed in and trusted had collapsed right out from under me. At first I thought, maybe you ought to head back to Yosemite, do that hike. Maybe you should try to transcend it, climb out of it. It just didn't feel right. And the more I thought, you've always wanted to go to the Grand Canyon. Hike to the bottom, you're not getting any younger. What if you hike down into this crisis, into the earth, rather than try to climb out of it? What might be there for you? So that's what I did. For any of you who have ever made that descent, you know how staggering it is. And the wisdom that came to me was so clear, concise, profound. The Grand Canyon is only grand because of what's been lost, what's been taken away, not because of one thing that's been added, one particle of soil at a time letting go, losing itself to the water over the span of 5 million years. Swept away by something so simple as water. I spent that night at the Phantom Ranch at the bottom of the canyon. It's a charming, historic, albeit Spartan compound, dormitory-like cabins, communal dining room. That night, the lovely gentleman who served us dinner asked for our attention before we dug in, wanting to offer us a kind of blessing or invocation. "My friends, I want to welcome you here. And I hope that while you're here, you take some time to be still, to be quiet, to feel the power of this place, the majesty of it, the sacredness of it. It's like Mecca or Jerusalem for the native people." And he went on to say, no matter how hard it was for you to hike down here today, going up tomorrow is going to be so much easier. Of course, there were incredulous groans from around the dining room. Yeah, right. And if not, he said, "Rejoice, rejoice, you got no choice." I love that. I come back to it again and again as a kind of mantra. Rejoice, rejoice, you got no choice. What if, like the Grand Canyon, we are being carved out for our grandeur, hollowed out by loss, so that that which is indestructible might be revealed to us? Sure, let's savor each vista, cherish each moment, hold on, you bet. But with an oh so light touch and a willingness at any moment to let go, except perhaps for that one thing. So be it.
We are a community that works for more than ourselves. Today we pledge 50% of our offering to UNICEF, the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. UNICEF works in the world's toughest places to reach the most disadvantaged children and to protect the rights of every child everywhere. Across more than 190 countries and territories, UNICEF does whatever it takes to help young people survive, thrive, and fulfill their potential. Half of our offering this morning goes to UNICEF, so please give generously. We also encourage you to give to the general fund of our church. We are not worshiping in our building, nor can any of the rooms on our campus be used by the many groups that have met here for years. So if you are able, and we know some of you are not, please give generously. There are 3 ways to give: over text, through our website, or by mailing a check. Using your smartphone, text 844-982-0209 with the donation amount and the code for where the funds will be posted. A brief registration form will be sent to you if this is your first time giving in this manner, but it is very simple each time afterwards. To make a generous congregation contribution, use code GCC or use the QR code that you see on your screen. On our website, you can make a one-time donation or set up recurring payments for your pledge or another purpose. Your giving makes a big difference.
When the thunder rumbles, now the age of gold is dead, and the dreams we've clung to, dying to stay young, have left us parched and old instead. When my courage crumbles, when I feel confused and frail, when my spirit falters on decaying altars and my illusions fail, I go on right then, I go on again, I go on to say I will celebrate another day. I go on. If tomorrow tumbles and everything I love is gone, I will face regret all my days, and yet I will still go on. Lauda, lauda, laude. Lauda, lauda, di, da, di, de. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
I invite you to perhaps close your eyes and let's take a few nice, deep breaths together. Breathing in the love, the intention, the commitment of this community to come together and to connect, despite all that there is now to separate us physically. As we exhale, can we release the light and the radiance of our coming together, not only back to one another, but to the larger circles of life? Let's even stretch our arms out right now, right where you are, and imagine our embrace of each other and those larger circles of life, getting a sense of our connectedness in a place beyond time and space, despite the physical isolation of this moment. As we breathe into that embrace, can we also embrace that part of us that really wished for something else, something other than what we got? That part of us that does not want to let go. Can we extend tender compassion to that part of ourselves, even as life pulls much that we may love from our grasp? May we find peace in that delicate balance between holding on and letting go. So be it.